Juggernaut Classic does its best to mimic the Juggernauts of old in Halo 5. When the game starts, one player is chosen at random to be Juggernaut. Juggernaut gets a hammer that only he can pick up. He has extra health, more powerful ground pounds, and is a little faster than other players. He has line of sight awareness of enemies only and doesn't see any navs. He can't really do any damage with other weapons, so best pick up the hammer when you're Juggernaut. Other players see a friendly nav over non-Juggernauts to let them know they are on the same team and can't really damage them, and they'll see an obvious red nav over the Juggernaut, making it clear he's their enemy. Only the Juggernaut can get points for kills. When you kill the Juggernaut, your reward is to be chosen as the next Juggernaut. Be careful which friendlies you stand by, for they could become the next enemy. This mode was a beast to script. Some even said it couldn't be done, but I was up for the challenge. It took months to work through many of the Halo 5 scripting bugs and figure out how to accomplish all the things. The base of Juggernaut is a player tracker, cooked up by my friend and mentor, Yumudas Beegbut. It processes information for every player every single tick. Using tricks I learned from him, I was able to get Juggernaut to detect and process who kills the Juggernaut on the very same tick it's detectable in the game, which took a bit of testing to figure out. All in all, this was a very rewarding project to finally accomplish, especially considering there were times that it was hung up for weeks on a glitch or other problem that Yumudas and I eventually found workarounds for. I loved watching Juggy Nuggies unfold before my eyes from block out to final design. It was fascinating learning about the process from another point of view and seeing things I'd never taken into consideration. I asked FatKidForger some questions to include insight into the map's design.
The best way I can explain it is it's this weird balance between regular core forging and adapting to a specific minigame style. You have a lot of core values where it's effectively free-for-all, and you have a lot of balancing that you need to do. So what you're trying to consistently provide is a way for the Juggernaut to keep circulating, but have a lot of those paths being hard enough where they can easily get caught out if they're not skillful or smart enough to actually understand how the map rotates. So I think the biggest thing for me was making sure there was enough segmented spaces on the map, but also enough open areas where if they got caught out in the open, there was lots of angles that all the other players could kind of shoot at them from. Because the last thing you also want is to get everybody caught up in like a room, and even if the Juggernaut is killed, somebody just then takes that opportunity to kill everybody else in the room as well. So you want to make sure that there's plenty of spaces where if the Juggernaut is killed, you'll be alright because the person who killed him is on the other side of the map because there's that open sightline from loads of different angles. So it's just constantly balancing that, but also you don't want the Juggernaut to kind of hold up in one space and just wait there and wait for people to come in, or just consistently choke point every single corner of the map. So there is this weird balance between making open spaces and segmented spaces to keep the pace and the gameplay feeling fun and consistently interesting. The design was inspired largely by Mythic. For me, it's one of the easiest things to design. So when I'm moving into a new game mode that I've never designed for before, it's actually one of the easiest things to work with. It's just, okay, I know that if I split the map up well and I use a lot of just basic architecture, I'm gonna have a really good foundation, and that way I can just focus on the pathing and how the areas work together. As for the aesthetic, it was really kind of by luck. I knew I wanted it to be kind of this intricate industrial style, but I happened to be watching Jurassic Park when I was finishing up the map. So a lot of the inspiration came from both the clean, really well presented industrial complex design of the original film, and then I wanted to kind of clash that and contrast it with the more rundown, desolate feel that you get from the second film, because those two films inherently work off each other in that way. And I thought if you can actually use that aesthetic properly in a map, it also defines the areas, so when people spawn, because this game mode is going to require a lot of spawning, people actually know where they are. So the aesthetic helps make the gameplay more intuitive, but it was also just based off of something that I was really enjoying the visuals of at the time. The biggest difference is actually how much it's more like free-for-all. The fact that everybody's after one guy, so it's basically glorified VIP, means that every single amount of interaction is only happening within the space that you give the Juggernaut to work with in that time. So you could get around the whole map as Juggernaut, but the problem becomes that it's almost like a puzzle solving system where say you're running forward and you've got a few different paths and there's like two guys running at you from the front, but you've got people chasing you from behind. You're forced to take the other path because you're just going to run into them. And if you don't have enough health, or if you've got loads of health and you think you can make it and it's not open enough, or the map's not too open, you can take out those two guys if you feel like you can. So it's all about understanding how, because like I say, ultimately everything about the movement of this map is dictated by the Juggernaut and being in play. So the biggest difference is not to try and treat everything like a sightline or an inherent team pushing choke point, and to more gauge with the fact that it's like one guy running around a level and a bunch of guys chasing that guy running around a level. So areas within their own mini meta need to work really well. They need to be open enough to engage. So for example, you don't want those really tiny tight areas because the Juggernaut's just going to kill anybody in those areas. But you want to make sure that all of your segments are, well segmented. Like for example, a biggest difference I would say is within, areas, atriums, I would usually like to add a lot of sightline blockers to break up the space a bit more and have a bit more interaction with movement. But in this game mode, I actually tried to make each area a lot more open and a lot more path oriented, because that's the way that this gameplay is designed to work with. Personal guilt, Chaos has done a lot for me, and I just wanted to actually do something in return, was basically my entire motivation. And when I heard that Juggernaut was being made, I was like, it just sounded like something interesting to get involved with anyway, and motivates me to finish something more than if I was just to make a map for myself. And at this point, with the game being so, I don't know, past its prime, there's not as many people that I can make stuff for, like actively just out of my own desire. So yeah, it's way more rewarding to make something for somebody, in my personal opinion. And obviously that used to be just making maps for people to play on the customs browser. But now it's kind of making maps for people who just make game modes. So I like to be able to kind of fill that slot where it's like I feel I know a decent amount about level design, so why not actually help out people who could do with that and have something to boost their gameplay experience. It helps to elevate what it is that they're making.
Special thanks to FatKidForger for making this map especially for Juggernaut. I think it's a beautiful map, and Juggernaut plays great on it. And thanks to MG Eclipse for helping test it so that we could identify and squash bugs. See links to bookmark Juggernaught Classic and FatKidForger's map Juggy Nuggies in the description.